Hi there again, it's Dan, JD73 Goldman here again for Music Radar and Future Music magazine. Today I'm going to be looking at Roland's latest synth offering, the Jupiter-50. Okay, so here we have the new Jupiter-50. Essentially it's a trimmed down version of the Jupiter-80 that I reviewed in Future Music a few issues back. Difference is obviously the hardware. Although it's longer, it's a lot lighter to carry than the Jupiter-80, which is great for gigging with. We've got plastic end panels here instead of brushed aluminium on the Jupiter-80. We've got half the polyphony with 128 notes instead of 256, which does result in a little bit of note stealing on this keyboard on more complex patches. And obviously we've lost the colour touchscreen off the Jupiter-80, which was one of the most appealing things about the Jupiter-80 actually, but so we've that's been sacrificed for a smaller monochrome screen here to bring it in at the £2,000 including VAT price point, although it's going to hit street at around $16.99. Also, one of the other things that's missing is aftertouch from the keybed. I mean, it's a really high quality feeling keybed. It's great for playing all types of different sounds. Not ideal for playing piano, but certainly controllable. But there's no weighting model anyway, so you kind of have to play the piano sounds from the unweighted keyboard, whether it's this model, the 50 or the 80. Quick overview of the hardware. We've got the pitch stick here on the left, a couple of assignable switches, a USB flash key slot for storing sounds and for playing back and recording WAVs that you might have created on your computer or internal performances from the keyboard itself. We've got bank select switches, registration buttons, a manual mode for creating patches from scratch really quickly just using a simple tone block, the D beam for hands-free control the sounds, control pitch, volume, or you can assign it to whatever else you want, volume control, reverb on off, 2 dials for controlling cutoff and resonance, or assigning that to any other parameter as well. You can use it for the tone blender function as well, which controls multiple parameters from one dial. Arpeggiator section, which can be assigned to either the lower or the upper parts. Octave up and down, transpose switches, controls for the percussion layer or the lower tone layer. It can also split the lower tone as well. A harmony intelligence button where if you play chords in the left, the right hand will follow the kind of harmony of those the chord laid out in the left hand. Part balance allows you to level parts within a sound, and you can also switch in different elements of the sound as well corresponding to each slider, so you can switch out the percussion and lower level combined together, or switching in and out the upper level, or switching in and out the solo level. Each of those levels can have its own sort of split points as well and areas on the keyboard, which is great. And this is great for live performance as well, for fading parts in and out. There's one part less than on the Jupiter-80 there. Not a massive deal, but just something to be aware of. The colour buttons here are select different categories of sound, so piano, electric piano, organ, bass, pads, strings, synth strings, brass, synth brass, woodwinds, guitar, synth leads, vibes, marimba, or other sounds. You also have an alternate button here which allows you to have other sounds saved within a patch, so you can quickly flip between sounds within a patch, which is a really nice touch for live as well. So this is the upper area here. On the solo layer, again, you've got violin, trumpet and sax, flute, oboe and other, and again an alternate button for flipping between an alternative sound and the sound that's selected, and a solo split as well, so you can split the solo area. To the right of the screen, normal data entry dials, cursors, and you've got your song player and recorder on the right there, where you can capture ideas on the fly or playback sounds that you've or performances that you've loaded in via the card. Quickly around the back, you've got headphones, stereo output, stereo sub out, audio input for putting your iPod through or things like that. USB, MIDI in and out, no MIDI through, that's been lost from the Jupiter-80. Display contrast, 2-foot control switches, and a hold switch for sustain. And that's pretty much the overview of the hardware and the front panel. So if you double click on any of these category buttons, it brings up all the sounds under that particular category. So under the piano button, you've obviously got all the pianos. So let's check out a few different ones. We've got the Supernatural piano here. So all the samples are great, the Supernatural sounds, because they're not actually looped, so there's no loop points or weird clicks in the sounds on the tails or anything like that, no aliasing. They just sound very rich and full and very natural. A couple more pianos. Bright piano. Just turn the reverb off there. The effects actually sound really good as well. The reverb's very musical. All the effects are very musical. And there's plenty on board to be getting on with. Mellow piano. And you've got things like sympathetic resonance on the piano sounds and hammer noise that you can add, a bit like the Korg Kronos. But I actually think this board sounds a lot warmer and more realistic. You can get pretty deep patches going on this keyboard. Although one downside, like I was saying, is because the polyphony is halved, you can hear a bit of note stealing there. A lot of the time the note stealing doesn't get in the way, but it's just something to be aware of. Piano and acoustic bass. There's a few piano sounds, electric pianos. Suitcase with phaser. Tremolo suitcase. Stereo pan suitcase. Well, very nice sounds, very dynamic, very natural sounding. Not the most authentic in the world, but if you do a bit of tweaking, you get closer. And if you go into the edit mode, menu, and hit enter, edit, and go to modify, you've got drawbars that come up on the screen here. And then you can scroll along, move them in and out. Obviously, because there's no touch screen, it is a bit of a pain. But with the upcoming iPad editor, hopefully you'll be able to do this function on the iPad, though I'm not 100% sure whether that's going to be possible. So just bear in mind, it's not really ideal for live performance, this, having to go through the screen. A touch screen would be much better. But if you go to the bass section, just press exit. Don't remember to press exit. It's slightly annoying that you have to keep pressing exit to get our different edit modes, but there we go. Acoustic bass, finger bass, and it's nice when you do play legato, you actually get slides between the notes. That's one of the great things about this keyboard as well, just the kind of natural nuances that you can impart to a sound. And on S2 switch here, you can add harmonics. Or slap on S1. And once you sit these sounds in tracks, they sound pretty authentic. Definitely the most authentic kind of samples I've heard, probably in a keyboard, in a sample-based keyboard today. Anyway, pads, Jupiter style hollow pad. The filters sound really good as well. There's also new filter modes in the version 2 software, including a Moog mode, a Jupiter 8 mode, and a sequential circuits mode. juicy, really full and wide. The D2A sound great. Sound exactly the same as the Jupiter-80, which is one of my favourite sounding digital keyboards. Warm and wide and full as well. It's actually very inspiring to play. It's just a shame there's not as many real-time controls as I'd like. I'd love like a plethora of analog style synth controls here on the right, but the iPad editor, particularly for the synth sounds, will be great for that. So you might, if you can velcro it onto the top there on the right hand side, it'd be great. It's a shame there's no aftertouch, because that would really add another level to the dynamics of sounds, and obviously the Jupiter-80 has that. I think it's probably the most missed feature on this version. It's nice when you scroll through sounds as well, it doesn't cut off the previous sound, so you can swap between sounds. Violins. And you can use the part balance sliders to fade parts in and out, which is really nice. And using S1 and S2, you flip between pizzicato and more staccato type versions of the sound. Acoustic strings that definitely rival a dedicated computer-based string library, especially when you layer them up. They sound fantastic. Synth strings. It's great for all your staple kind of sounds, but it can definitely rival real analogs as well for actual warmth of tone. And the filters are really smooth and wide. Again, I've got very few complaints about the actual onboard sounds, bar perhaps for the clavinets, which sound a little bit unauthentic and a bit underwhelming really. Some gorgeous pads again. Brass and sax. Again, on their own, a lot of these don't sound amazing, but once they sit in a track, note stealing there again, unfortunately. That's due to the fewer notes of polyphony there compared to the Jupiter-80. Alto sax. It'd be so nice to have aftertouch here when you're leaning into it, but woodwinds again. Very nice. Acoustic guitars are fantastic as well. And you get slides between notes. Depending on how you play, depends how authentic the slides sound, but they are pretty good. And finally, acoustic wise, got vibes and marimbas. Some of these have trills on the control as well, like on the pitch wheel. Okay, in this part of the Jupiter-50 video, I'm just going to show you a bit about editing and how the sounds are made up. Firstly, let's look at a live set. Now, a live set is the most important kind of sound that you use in the Jupiter-50. That's made up of 4 elements and is always controlled by the upper slider here in the middle. Now, a live set can be made up of supernatural synth or supernatural acoustic tones, and they can all be layered together. That can then be placed into a registration along with a lower part and a solo part as well on the top. So it's very powerful. If you think about it, you could have a bass sound, a solo lead sound at the top, and a 4-tone stack in the middle. So and then you can mix and blend them as you want with the part sliders as well in registration mode. So all in all, very, very powerful in terms of layering. If you want to edit sounds further, simply hit Menu, Enter. Let's first edit this live set. Here we go. So you can see this sound here is made up of different elements, different layers. We've got what are called, there's 4 of the same sound here laid up, called Techno Lead 36. So there's loads and loads of different sampled synth waves to choose from, and PCM waves, various other wave shapes as well, squares, triangles, pulse width, stroke squares together, all sorts of different combinations that you can use. Now, if you hit Modify, you can then go into editing these layers. So we'll just hit, you can hit, obviously you've got a pitch envelope, amp envelope, LFOs, obviously 1 per oscillator, up to 12 oscillators, so up to 12 LFOs going on there, potentially. A miscellaneous tab as well, where you've got time interval, envelope sensitivity, envelope looping, for time evolving sounds as well, and portamento controls and different modes, and modulation send amounts. So if we go into synth edit here, you can select the different partials that you're editing. This is the deeper synth edit screen. Partial number 1, which is highlighted there. You can add in more partials here or turn them off. That's just 1 partial going on. And you select the different ones here. Let's listen to the filter cutoff. Change the resonance a bit. Mess around with the decay slider, sustain amount, and there's various different filter modes. Low pass 3, and they all react differently. A low pass 4, high pass, band pass. So all with their own inherent different sort of character. Turn that resonance down again, so as not to annoy you too much. Then you can switch in the other partials. So if we're now looking at partial 2, I've selected partial 2 to edit. That's low pass filter mode 1. Let's switch it to low pass filter mode 2 and lower the cutoff of that element a little bit. Now with more resonance. As you can hear, the cutoff's only affecting 1 layer at the minute, but if I hold down all 3 select buttons, the cutoff then will filter all 3 layers together. A bit like the tone blender function, where you can use the cutoff dial or the resonance dial to control multiple parameters, not just filter parameters, but any other parameter on the keyboard as well. Which goes some way to making up for the lack of real-time controls on this keyboard. It is annoying in this mode because you just want to grab some faders and sliders, but it's very, very screen centric. As I've already said though, hopefully the iPad editor will kind of help out a little bit there. So that's 2 partials. Obviously you can mix and blend them here. So you can hear the oscillator beating there from the detuning. Switching a 3rd partial. So obviously there's quite a lot of portamento and it's in unison mode at the minute. If I go to Pro Edit, You can also change all your wave shapes. Well, there seems to be a bug there because it just cut out. Anyway, it's come back to life, thankfully. Synth edit. You can choose not only different waves, but different variations on those waves as well. So these are different variations on pulse width square. Fat kind of moogie type sound. Does really sound great, this synth engine, gotta say. Really fat and juicy. Good for all sorts of sounds, synth leads, basses, sound effects. Now let's scroll down a bit. We've got all sorts of things like oscillator detuning, pitch envelope controls, filter envelope controls, amp envelope controls, you name it's here. LFO shapes. If we just scroll through, you can see how many parameters there are. Just scrolling through here. I want to switch, there's an analog field parameter as well, which is kind of like, I suppose, oscillator slop on a Prophet 8 or something like that. So that has some nice fatness as well. Plus there's unison mode as well. And you can have different sizes of unison. And this is per layer as well, per partial. Let's switch this to poly. Just switched off portamento there. So then we can go and we can change the overall amp envelope. Filter envelope. Sounds really nice, gotta say. And then switch the reverb on. Great sounding reverb. Okay, and if we go back here to the first edit page, we've got common parameters as well, where you can phase lock sounds as well, and manually select cutoff and resonance and the live set category that you're using. Just basic parameters there. Different layer controls, so leveling, panning for each layer. Effect sends, keyboard note ranges, effect sends for each of the 4 different MFX units and the reverb. So you can have layers not sending to the reverb or sending completely to the reverb. Just turning up layer 1 there. Now I've added in the other two elements out of the live set there as well now. So you've got a massive sound going on. Back to 1 layer. So you've also got controls for your pitch and vibrato rates as well. And delay that as well. So there's everything in that you need. It's really a programmer's dream. It's just slightly frustrating that it's quite hard to access all these different parts without having all the real-time controls. Let's have a quick look at the effects as well. before I sign off. You've got different mod effects here. You've got low boosts, super filter, step filters going to be applied to each layer, modulation delays, flangers, choruses. Let's just turn the bright off. Slightly annoying. Back to the effects. Turn the reverb off. So layer 1 here, we've just switch on the layers first, that always helps. Distortion chorus, distortion delay, chorus delay, flanger delay, sympathetic resonance for using with the piano, 4-tap pan delay, serial delays, guitar amp simulators, step flanging, auto pans as well. So everything's in there. I hope that's just giving you a quick overview anyway of what's going on in there. It's very, very deep, and it's quite hard to sort of show you everything in a lot of detail here, but that's the basic way that it works. As you can see, it's quite screen centric, but once you get your head around it, it does become more second nature. And the main thing is it sounds fantastic. I think it's a great board. It sounds every bit as warm and as hi-fi as its bigger brother, the Jupiter-80, which is Roland's flagship. So you really are getting the quality of sound that's in Roland's flagship synthesizer, which can only be a good thing, and it comes in significantly cheaper than the flagship model. We're looking at about $16.99 street, whereas the Jupiter-80 is around $2,700, maybe a bit less. So the Jupiter-50 is a lot less. Obviously for that price quite a bit has been stripped out, which is the biggest killer for me, is the lack of aftertouch. The smaller screen, I mean, having a touchscreen is really essential on this kind of keyboard, especially when you want to get stuck into, say, a drawbar organ sound or that kind of thing. It's all very well having the pictures of the drawbars on screen, but if you can't just dig in and grab them, it's kind of frustrating. All in all, though, a fantastic sounding board. I really can't fault it, apart from the clavinet samples are a bit weak. Obviously, you lose a part in the live sets as well, in the registration, but that isn't such a big deal. The polyphony being chopped in half, that's more of a deal, because you do find on deep multi-layered patches that you can run out of polyphony, and you get a bit of note stealing as well. So that isn't ideal, but I suppose there has to be some compromise there as it is a lower down product in the range. But all in all, it's fantastic for film composers, for people into more electronic music, people after great expressive acoustic sounds, and it could really be your go-to keyboard for most sounds, whether that's live or in your studio.